Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Court officer, could you please call the case? Thank you, Madam President. Your Honours. The situation in the Republic of the Philippines case, the prosecutor versus Mr. Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Case number ICC 0121 0125. And we are in open session.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I will now ask parties to introduce themselves, starting with the Office of the Prosecutor. Please pause before speaking and speak slowly to allow the interpreters to interpret appropriately. May I ask you to introduce yourself and to confirm whether the list of your staff that I received prior to the hearing is correct, Mr. Prosecutor?
Your Honours, good morning. The list is correct. Once again, Deputy Prosecutor Manjay Niang to my left, trial lawyer Edward Jeremy behind us, trial lawyer Robin Croft, International Cooperation Advisor Chantel Daniels, and our very able case manager Grace Go. I'm Korean Farmer Prosecutor.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Now turn to the counsel for the defence of Mr. Duterte. As everyone can see, Mr. Duterte is present and is attending the hearing via video link. As Mr. Duterte made a long journey involving a considerable time difference, the Chamber authorised Mr. Duterte to follow the hearing at a distance. His counsel, however, is present with us in the courtroom. Thank you, counsel. Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Your Honours. I am Salvador C. Medjugorje, counsel for Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, counsel. I will now introduce the chamber. By my side, we have Judge Rain Adelaide Sophie Alapine Gansou, the Vice President of the Court, and Judge Maria del Socorres Flores Vieira. I am the presiding judge of the pretrial chamber 1 of the court, and my name is Julia Antoinetta Montauk. Now, I would like to speak to you, Mr. Duterte. I'm speaking French, but you are receiving an interpretation of what I'm saying in English. I understand that you are at ease in the English language, and that the interview yesterday at the detention centre was conducted in English, and that you did not deem it necessary to request interpretation into any other language during this interview. Instead, I would like firstly to confirm your identity. Could you provide us with your full name, please?
John Rodrigo Roa Duterte. That's my first middle name is Roa. The surname is Duterte.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. What is your date of birth?
Again,
Can we request that the question be repeated? I don't think he heard it. Thank you.
Repetition from the English group. What is your date of birth? Yes, thank you very much, counsel. I was asking quite simply of Mr. Duterte what his full names were, and then I subsequently asked him what his date of birth was and what his place of birth is. Is that all right, counsel?
of course I do. My birth day is March 28, 1945. I was born in the province of Leyte in the Philippines.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. As a preliminary point. Very well. Thank you, Mr. Duterte. As a preliminary point, it is useful to clarify the nature and limited scope of this first hearing. Today's hearing is neither the start of the trial, nor is it a confirmation of charges hearing. During today's hearing, no evidence will be collected or presented, and the issues of Mr. Duterte's guilt or innocence will therefore not be addressed. In accordance with Article 61 of the Rome Statute, the Court's founding treaty, and Rule 1211 of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence, the main purpose of this initial appearance is to answer three questions. Firstly, the Chamber must ensure that the person who was the subject of the arrest warrant has been informed of the crimes of which he is accused. Second, the Chamber must ensure that this person has been informed of his rights as recognised by the Rome Statute. Third, the Chamber must set a date on which it intends to hold a confirmation of charges hearing. The Chamber notes that your counsel, Mr. Duterte, filed two motions, one in relation with today's hearing, and you may be aware that these two motions have not been accepted by the Chamber because of the nature of today's hearing. No further discussion on the matter is necessary during this hearing because, as I said at an earlier stage, the aim of this hearing today is to introduce the parties and to ascertain the charges and to set a date for the confirmation of charges hearing at a later stage. With regard to the first point, I recall that Mr. Duterte has received a copy of the warrant for his arrest and that a redacted version of the prosecutor's application for the issuance of the warrant of arrest is public. I will now ask the court officer to read the charges against him. The charges will be read in English. Please, over to you, Madam Court Officer. Thank you, Madam President, Your Honours.
On 7 March 2025, pre-trial chamber 1 concluded that there were reasonable grounds to believe that Mr. Duterte is criminally responsible pursuant to Article 25(3)(a) of the Rome Statute as an alleged indirect perpetrator of a crime against humanity of murder pursuant to Article 7(1)(a) of the statute as follows. A. Murder of at least 19 persons, allegedly drug pushers or thieves, killed by members of the Davao Death Squad in various locations in or around Davao City, Philippines between 2011 and 2016. B. Murder of at least 24 persons, allegedly criminals, such as drug pushers or thieves or drug users, killed by or under the supervision of members of the Philippines law enforcement, sometimes with the assistance of persons who were not part of the police, at various locations in the Philippines between 2016 and 2019.
Merci beaucoup, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Court Officer. Mr. Duterte, I'm not going to ask you to stand up because I know your condition, so I'm going to allow you to remain seated. You have just heard the reading of the charges, which are in accordance with the content of the arrest warrant you received. This means that you have been informed of the crimes of which you are accused, and this concludes the examination of the first point mentioned above. I will now turn to the second point, which concerns your rights as a suspect challenge the evidence presented by the prosecutor and present evidence. There will be no trial if the charges are not confirmed or if the proceedings against you are completed. You have the possibility to make an application for interim release pending trial. In findings to Duterte, you have the right to be informed as soon as possible and in detail of the nature, cause, and content of the charges in the language that you fully understand and speak. Counsel, have you understood?
We're listening, Mom. Listening, and before it ends, may we be allowed to present a manifestation on the circumstances behind the delivery of Mr. Duterte in this chamber.
As part of the procedure, and as we said since the very outset, I need to ask Mr. Duterte himself to make observations as to the condition of his surrender to the court and the conditions of his detention at the detention facility of the court since his arrival. If he can please tell us these details.
Thank you.
Presiding Judge, yes, Counsel.
Please. 2 days ago, the whole world has witnessed the degrading fashion in which a former president of a sovereign country was bundled into a private aircraft and summarily transported to The Hague. To us lawyers, this would be called an extrajudicial rendition. To the less legally inclined, it was a pure and simple kidnapping. My client was denied all access to the legal recourse in the country of his citizenship, and this all in the nature of political score settling. Two troubled entities struck an unlikely alliance, an incumbent president who wished to neutralize and choke the legacy of my client and his daughter on the other hand, and a troubled legal institution subject to the legitimization and desperate for a price cut and a legal show today on the other hand. With this in mind, it is not surprising that my client was abducted from his country. ICC private jets do not drop out of the thin air. That jet, which received my client, was coordinated in advance. The UAE is not a state party to the ICC and has no obligation to cooperate with the court. Yet my client sat in transit in that country for more than 5 hours. I invite the registry's representative to present today in court to explain to the judges exactly how they believe this transfer was anything other than a gross abuse of process. Given the precipitous arrival of my client, an early man with debilitating medical issues, hard of hearing and poor of sight, he was taken to a hospital for observation. Only this morning have I met him for the first time with less than an hour to discuss legal issues. I have not been able to present him with a hard copy of the arrest warrant because we were not supplied with such. I have not even been able to explain to him what the prosecution requested when seeking the issuance of the arrest warrant. This is because the chamber only established a redacted version of the prosecution request last night. Other than to identify himself, my client is not able to contribute anything to this hearing. Most importantly, he is not able
believe that the court has taken specific measures with regard to his situation, and I note that subsequent to his arrest and when he arrived at the detention centre, the court's doctor was of the opinion that you were fully mentally aware and fit, and that you have undergone further checks and tests at the detention facility. And when you approached health matters, that's saying that you were not able to come to the hearing, the doctors who consulted with you were of the opinion that Mr. Duterte was not in a position to come to the hearing physically, but that if he gave the written permission, he would be able to take part by video link. Now, that is with regard to the health matters that you just mentioned. They are very important, especially concerning the matter of age. Now, with regard to the rights of Mr. Duterte, we have before us the registrar's or the registry's report that says that Mr. Duterte has been informed of his rights, including Articles 66 and 67 of the Rome Statute, and that he is aware of his rights and that he is also aware of the charges against him. We have before us the report of the registry saying that he was also aware of the warrant of arrest in the English language and that he is very well versed in the English language. Once again, we have the possibility of these charges being read in English, which was the case today. I have read to you in French language the rights that he has, Mr. Duterte, before this court, and I'd like to specify once again that this is an initial hearing in order for Mr. Duterte to be aware of his rights and the charges against him. And then there will be a full procedure that will unfurl leading up to the confirmation of charges that will enable Mr. Duterte to raise all the matters that you have just raised with regard to the right of arrest, with regard to the crimes committed, with regard to the charges, and any other matters associated with his arrest, and the matters of jurisdiction of the court. You have the opportunity to do this throughout these proceedings, leading up to the actual confirmation of charges hearing. Now, counsel, with regard to your request for another hearing to be held next week, well, your initial request, that was, this was not accepted by the court. Now, you have seen the two decisions of the court that have been disclosed to you, and you are aware of the fact that the two decisions were refused. And this is by dint to the fact that this first initial hearing does not need much preparation, as I have said to you on a number of occasions. I am now going to move on to the third stage, which is to set the date for the confirmation of charges hearing. After assessing all factors, including the need for the parties and participants to adequately prepare, as well as Mr. Duterte's rights, including his right to be tried within a reasonable time, the date for the commencement of the confirmation of charges hearing is September the 23rd, 2025. I would add that in accordance with Rule 1217 of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence, this date may be postponed by the Chamber depending on the progress of the proceedings, either on its own motion or at the request of the prosecutor or the defence. Before concluding this hearing, I would like to inform the parties of the next procedural steps. First, I would like to recall that in accordance with Rule 1212B of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence, the Chamber holds status conferences to ensure a small exchange of information under satisfactory conditions. These conferences are organised either ex officio at the request of the prosecutor or the defence. Secondly, a set of decisions will be taken in a timely manner to ensure that the proceedings progress smoothly and expeditiously. More specifically, I am referring in particular to a decision on the arrangements and procedure for the disclosure of evidence, and a decision setting a timetable for the disclosure of evidence in such a way as to ensure orderly and efficient disclosure between the parties. In this regard, the Chamber orders the prosecutor to begin disclosing today the information on the basis of which the warrant of arrest was issued, and to complete this disclosure no later than within the next 7 days. The Chamber will also issue a decision on the participation of the victims who, according to the statute of the court and to the extent permitted by the Chamber, are authorised to present their views and concerns at this stage of the proceedings. We have come to the end of Mr. Duterte's first appearance hearing. I would like to thank all the participants in this hearing, the interpreters, and the stenographers. This concludes today's hearing.
The lead judge there at the ICC, Julia Antonella Montauk. It was credible. It was a procedure by the book, as one of the legal experts said a while ago, Jeff. But there was also a moment there where Executive Secretary Salvador Medellea also appealed for President Duterte was there, but he joined via a video link.
According to Moto, biggest contention for them today, biggest argument for them today, Carmina, was that the chamber must be informed, that the suspect must be informed of the crime, as expected. Two, is to ensure that he has been informed of the rights according to the Rome statute. And the third one is the date of the confirmation of charges here, which was set in September.
September 23, 2025. It's a long ways to go. We're just in March. But very interesting how former Executive Secretary Salvador Medellea, there standing as a legal counsel of former President Rodrigo Duterte, how he described the former president in a state of health. At one point, the former Executive Secretary said that the former president is hard of hearing and poor of sight. He also called this whole process a gross abuse of process. He also said that the former president was summarily transported to the Hague, and it was still pure and simple kidnapping. And in a nutshell, the former Executive Secretary said that this is just political score settling, that he was abducted from his own country. But then, true to the procedure, Judge Julia Antonella Montauk, just stuck to the process, said that this can be discussed in the confirmation of charges part of the process, because, as she said, today's pre-trial appearance will only focus on the three things that you mentioned.
So Judge Julia Antonella Montauk did mention that Duterte's counsel, Salvador Medellea, filed 2 motions in relation to this hearing, but Montauk said the 2 motions have not been accepted because of the nature of this very hearing, which again goes back to the process of ICC saying that with Duterte's first appearance, the only things that needed to happen was first, the suspect must be informed of the crime. 2, ensure that he has been informed of his rights according to the Rome statute. And the third one would be to set a date to hold the confirmation of charges here. So from here, Carmina, it's going to be a long wait if it's set in September.
What is sure now is that the counsel of the former president is now indeed the former Executive Secretary Salvador Medellea, even if Attorney Harry Marcos, former spokesperson, is an ICC listed counsel. We're talking about, how long this will be to accredit Salvador Duterte as the lead counsel there in the ICC proceedings, and sure enough, it was almost immediate that he is there standing as the lead counsel for the former president, Rodrigo Duterte.
If you could only, I guess, imagine for me na parang tagal na, no? Pero this arrest happened just a few days ago, and now we're actually seeing former President Duterte facing the judges at the International Criminal Court. However, para sa mga ngayon na po nanonood, ito po, nakikita po ninyo yung video ng sa ating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Siya po ay nasa detention center. Hindi po siya naka-attend dun mismo sa venue. No? Video leak lang yung binigay po sa kanya. At sinasabi nga pong dahilan na dahil nga po sa napakahabang biyahe, pagkatapos po ng kanyang pag-aresto, siya po yung health reasons nga po ng dating Pangulo.
Doon din po kasi sa sinabi ni former Executive Secretary Salvador Duterte kung saan kumbaga ibinabahagi niya dun sa kay Judge Moto kung ano ang kalagayan ng kalusugan ng dating Pangulong Duterte. Sinasabi niya na hindi nasa mabuting kalagayan ang dating Pangulong Duterte. Pero sabi naman ni Judge Moto, tinignan naman siya ng mga doktor doon sa ICC at napag-alaman na kaya naman niyang mag-appear, no, at humarap sa ICC kahit ba video link yan, nakita naman ng mga doktor na kaya naman ng dating Pangulong Duterte. Kaya yung sinasabi niya na itong mga issue na gustong pag-usapan sana ni dating Executive Secretary Salvador Duterte, yung doon sa sinasabi niyang kidnapping at ito ay dahil lamang sa away politika, ito naman daw ay pwede nang pag-usapan doon sa susunod dito sa proseso, which is, the confirmation of charges part.
So, uulitin na po natin, sabi po ng korte kanina, na-check po si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte ng doktor mula po ng ICC at sinabi po na mentally aware and fit for pre-trial itong si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Tapos yung hearing na sabi nga, bago pa magsimula itong trial, nalaman natin yung kampo ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte gusto ipagpaliban. Kabila na po siya sa mga nagsabi ay si Attorney Harry Roque at si Vice President Sara Duterte kasi yung strategiya, kumbaga yung gusto nilang mapag-usapan. Pero sabi nga ng presiding judge na si Yulia Antonella Moto, ang sabi niya, with regard to your request for another hearing to be held next week, this was not accepted dahil hindi naman daw kailangan ng preparasyon sa first appearance o sa unang pagpapakita sa korte.
Kasi nga, yun ang sinasabi ng isa sa mga eksperto na kapanayam natin kanina, very clinical, it's a procedure that's by the book, no? Walang puwang para sa ganitong klaseng mga apela dito sa pre-trial appearance ng suspect. Ang suspect po niyan sa kasong ito ay si dating Pangulo Rodrigo Duterte. Ito ang kauna-unahang pagkakataon na nasilayan ng publiko ang dating Pangulo pagkatapos na siya ay inilipat sa kustodiya ng International Criminal Court. At dun sa tanong, no, ng presiding judge na si Judge Moto, tinanong lamang siya kung ano ang pangalan niya, kailan ang kanyang kaarawan, at saan siya ipinanganak. At nasagot naman ito ng dating Pangulong Duterte.
At ang tanong po ngayon ay kung ano po ba yung mangyayari sa tinatawag na confirmation of charges sa September. Kung titignan po natin yung dinatala po ng Agence France Press and AFP po. Ang sabi po nila, after a person's surrender or detention, the pre-trial chamber shall hold a hearing to confirm the charges on which the prosecutor intends to seek trial. The prosecutor must convince judges that substantial grounds exist to believe that the person committed the crime or crimes charged and that enough evidence had been gathered to hold a trial. Hindi po nalalaman kung ang prosecution ba ay may papatunayan o nakakalat ng sapat na ebidensya para magtuloy po ito sa aktual na paglilitis.
Ganyan po kahaba ang prosesong ikinakaharap po ng dating Pangulo dahil kung halimbawa naman ay hindi naging sa kanya ang desisyon, meron pa rin susunod na hakbang at yan yung appeals part. So, ngayon po, nandito tayo sa pre-trial, pagkatapos nito, nandun tayo sa trial, kung sakasakaling humantong nga doon. At kung humantong doon at hindi naging pabor sa dating Pangulo, meron pang isang bahagi, which is the appeals part of the whole proceeding.
Ilang posibilidad po yung pwedeng mangyari once matapos po yung tinatawag na confirmation of charges na hearing na nakatakda po sa Setyembre. Ang una po dyan ay confirming charges para magtuloy na nga po sa panlilitis. Pwede rin po sabihin ng hukom doon, ng West, ay mas kailangan ng mas maraming ebidensya pa mula sa prosecutor, i-modify yung charges, or i-drop yung charges altogether. Kumbaga, wala na. Hindi na magtutuloy sa panlilitis. So, yun po yung next date na kailangan po kapangan. September,
23.
2025.
Meron din nabanggit kanina, no, si Judge Moto, kasi nagkakaroon ng gustong tingnan ni former Executive Secretary Salvador Duterte, ito nga ang warrant of arrest, no? So parang pinagpapaliwanag din yung kabilang kampo. In 7 days, no, kailangan maipaliwanag din nila kung ano yung nangyari. Sa bahaging ito, makakapanayan natin ngayon si Attorney Nery Colmenares, kasama niya ang mga pamilya ng drug war victims sa Cebu. Attorney Nery, magandang gabi po sa inyo.
Ay, magandang gabi Carmina, magandang gabi sa inyo ni Jeff.
Una-una, anong saloobin niyo po, anong sentimiento nang makita itong pre-trial appearance ng dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte dyan sa International Court?
Yes, oo. Well, at least nasimulan na ang sa kanya. Hindi pa naman trial ito, preliminary pa lang ito. Nandito ako ngayon sa